Yeah. Oh, right.
Another one was the song Eat My Horses.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
She's driving the bus in Staten Island.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Oh yes, of course, yes. I'm good. How are you? It's good to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, you keeping well?
Yeah, very well. You?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yes.
I heard from David what you're doing, so it's all right.
Oh right. Are you still?
No, I left Jewish Cat 3 years ago.
Oh right.
I'm freelance now. So
Oh okay. Actually, I think I've seen you since then.
I haven't been here since then, because I'd only come to the bar.
Right.
The boys'
Okay.
bar.
Maybe I haven't, or maybe I heard from someone. Yeah.
I go back every now and then.
Yeah, I was doing some work at Sam Beckman for a while, doing sing-alongs with the.
Really?
Yeah, so I might have heard from someone, from Margaret or someone, but can't get away from it, can you?
Yes, yeah, you can.
Good to see you. This is really nice, isn't it? The flowers on the... Yeah. And they've got it fitted with a gold ribbon. It's really lovely. Yeah. 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 Okay, we're going to play as they process it.
This is a very auspicious, special morning as 4 women in our congregation have chosen to study Torah, to learn more of their Jewish heritage, and to prepare themselves to read Torah this morning and to celebrate it as an adult bat mitzvah, all 4 of you. And I really this morning thought, as we headed towards this great moment of celebration, you can imagine we've been talking, thinking, studying, meeting through Zoom in person for quite a while. And you have all brought your families with you, children, grandchildren, who are all here. And I just thought to myself this week that Franz Rosenzweig, famous philosopher, who was part of the opening of the Lehrhaus, a new kind of Jewish learning in Berlin in 1920. Not knowing, not being able to anticipate or prophesy what would be happening in that place, but nonetheless knowing that something different had emerged for adults in their learning of Judaism. And he, back then in 1920, I really feel anticipated this moment in our synagogue in North Finchley with these 4 amazing women. A new learning, he wrote, is about to be born. Rather, it has been born. It is learning in reverse order, a learning that no longer starts from the Torah and leads into life, but the other way round, from life back to Torah, from the periphery back to the center, from the outside in. And I just can't think of a better blessing for all of you that bring the wisdom, the knowledge of your lives, the lives that you have led, back into this moment of celebrating your Judaism. So as a little extra, if you would like to turn to page 298 in your siddur, the themed reading for this week's parashah, Prejudice, of which we're going to hear an enormous amount from our Torah scholars, illuminating the words of Torah of Moses, Miriam, Aaron in their sibling moment together. We can hear the words being sung from Psalm, Mi ha'ish hachafetz hayim, who amongst us loves life.
Okay, so the rabbi mentioned there were 4 of us today, and I wanted to start by introducing Charlotte, who's sitting at the front there. Charlotte joined us along the way for our bat mitzvah journey. She started visiting FPS with her husband Mark 8 years ago through an interfaith group and felt like she had found her home here. After Mark died, Charlotte decided to convert, and she knows that Mark would have been really pleased about this. Charlotte was very keen to take part in today's bat mitzvah service, to study Hebrew, and devoted herself to learning her verses. So now I'm going to introduce myself. So I grew up in a traditional Jewish family and we were members of the United Synagogue. I actually found it quite formal and restrictive. Women sat separately in shul and wore fancy hats. The girls didn't have a coming of age. Some had a bat chayil, which is a kind of bat mitzvah light, but I didn't. Probably age 12, I was too shy, or perhaps I just didn't want to engage. And then as I went through my teens into university, I gradually drifted away from Judaism. In my 20s, I started a relationship and we decided to have a child. It felt important to pass on my heritage, but I didn't really know how to do that. Alison, my sister in America, who may be on the Zoom, things permitting, pointed out that there were many ways to be Jewish and suggested I shop around. FPS was recommended to me and a meeting was arranged with Rabbi Frank. I was pretty belligerent. Perhaps I was hoping to get sent away. I said, I'm a single parent, my daughter's father is non-Jewish, and I'm an atheist. Frank stroked his beard. Then he asked me my daughter's name. I said, it's Tiffany. It means a sudden appearance of divinity. Frank smiled and said, divinity, you? And I decided I need look no further. That was 27 years ago. Since then, I've been sometimes very involved as a member of council, and then around the time of Tiffany's bat mitzvah. In recent years, I've taken more of a back seat, but I still felt like I hadn't really joined all the dots, especially around services, Torah, and reading Hebrew. In 2019, the pandemic hit, and I can still remember the first FPS Zoom service and the bittersweet reassurance of familiar faces, tunes, and rituals. And then I attended last year's B'nai Mitzvah. It was very emotional, even on Zoom, and it planted a seed. I know I'm a late developer, but I get there in the end. That 12-year-old girl finally knows who she is. This is my identity, my culture, my community. So, coming of age, if not now, then when?
So, why am I here? Growing up in Israel, I had a bat mitzvah at 12. My paternal grandparents, who escaped from Poland and lost most of their family in the Shoah, were so proud of me, their firstborn granddaughter, and were determined to mark the occasion. They threw a lavish party where no expense was spared, inviting their many friends and acquaintances. There were about 300 guests, enjoying a sit-down dinner and entertainment at a smart function hall in the center of Tel Aviv. I don't remember having had much input. I remember being excited and happy, but also overwhelmed and confused. It was strange, because I didn't feel I merited such a fuss. Like most secular Israeli girls, my bat mitzvah meant nothing more than having reached the age of 12. I watched my two older boys prepare for their bar mitzvah, which they both did here at FPS. I accompanied their journey and was incredibly proud of their achievements. It never occurred to me that I could do this too. When my youngest son, Shmuel, sitting in the front row here, started studying for his bar mitzvah last year, I sought ways to become more involved in the synagogue and to be more connected with his journey. I found out that Rabbi Rebecca was leading a Hebrew learning group. I came along to help and very quickly found myself running it. It was great to be able to use my skill as a native Hebrew speaker to help members of the synagogue improve their Hebrew reading. It was also the first time that, as an Israeli, I found a way to engage. For a variety of reasons, which I will not go into here, Israelis struggle to integrate into Jewish communities in the diaspora, and I'm not talking only of myself. So despite being an on and off member for nearly 20 years, it is only now that I feel truly part of the community. I have found my way in. When we started studying as a group last winter, I felt like a fraud. Being Israeli, I can read from the Torah with no preparation. If someone should wake me up in the middle of the night and shove a Tanakh under my nose, I would read perfectly. But as the journey progressed, I found myself getting more into the ideas and meanings, and have challenged myself using to chant my verses. I would also like to say to my Israeli friends on Zoom, who ask me if I'm mitchazeket, which is a way of jokingly prodding someone who's showing signs of religiosity, that yes, I have found strength in preparing for my bat mitzvah, but not as you might think. I've found the comfort of Jewish tradition, together with the friendship and support I've had in my studies. The intellectual development I have gained made me stronger and able to face life, and I'm able to support my family together with my community and friends. Now I'm looking forward to continuing my involvement with FPS and liberal Judaism after today, and to a closer, meaningful future with my community.
Good morning. I remember when I told my family I was converting to Judaism. My father responded by saying, "All roads lead to one God." As I travel on this road, I continue to embrace my father's words, his dedication to his traditions, faith, and building a solid foundation for my family. I am proud to have witnessed my son's journey into Judaism and their subsequent bar mitzvahs under the pupillage of two very dynamic teachers. The relationships that they have forged with their mentors and friends in FPS and JCOS communities has also played an integral part in them becoming the people they are today. Following my son's leads, I decided to continue my studies and embrace my learning with passion and drive. During this past year, I have enjoyed my studies, being mindful of my religious upbringing and enhancing this with my Jewish learning. Having a bat mitzvah is part of a continuous journey. I dedicate my day to my family and friends for their unconditional love and support, and especially to my father for his wisdom and insight. I remain open and aware as I continue this journey. We will now turn to page 113. Praise be the one at whose command the world came to be. We praise you, our God, sovereign of the universe, worshipped by your people, lauded and glorified by those who love and serve you. With songs of praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, sole source of the life of all worlds. Baruch atah Adonai, melech meholal batish bahat.
It's page 116 at the top. Yihiyu neratzon imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha, Adonai suri v'goali.
Anim zemirot v'shirim merov, ki elecha nafshi tarov, nafshi chimda b'tzel yadecha ladat korasodecha. Midedabri b'kvodecha, omer libi echdodecha, yerab nafsi alecha, ki nafshi tarog elecha.
Let's stand for the Yishtabach.
Yishtabach shtimcha lav malkeinu, Ha'el hamelech hagadol v'hakadosh b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Ki lecha na'e Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei avoteinu. Shir u'shvacha, halel v'zimra, brachot v'hodahot, me'ata ve'ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai, Habocher b'shirei zimra.
We will now turn to page 136. 135.
Baruch hu et Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzei or uvarei hosha. Osei shalom uvarei et hakol. Hame'er la'aretz la'darim aliyah. Baruch hami uvatuvo mahadesh v'kol yom tamid hamesei v'rachmashit. Marabu ma'aseka Adonai kulam b'hakma asita mal'a ha'aretz kinyanaka tit barak Adonai Eloheinu al shavach ma'aseh yadecha va'al ma'odeh or shi'asita Yafa Aruha Salah. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer Hamorot.
Top of page 137. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Israel be'ahava.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavecha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol me'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, אשר נוחי מצבך היום על לבביך, ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך ביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please sit down. אמת ויציב וישר וקיים וטוב ויפה, הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו, מלך אבותינו, יוצרנו, צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו, מעולם הוא שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. אמת, אתה הוא ראשון ואתה הוא אחרון, ומבלעדיך אין לנו מושיע. ממצרים גאלתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, ומבית עבדים פדיתנו. משה ומרים ובני ישראל לך ענו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם.
מי כמוך בימים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה חן.
שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל ומה בעזרת ישראל, כמו עלינו אדוני צבאות שמו, כמו עלינו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Let's turn to page 140. Amidah, our standing prayer that our Banot Mitzvah will be leading us in as well.
Adonai sefatai titah ufia giteilatecha. Adonai sefatai titah ufia giteilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagabor, Vahanora, El Elyon, Gamal, Hasadim, Tovim, Vakanei, Hakol, Vazoher, Hasadeh, Avot, Makot, Mevi, Gula, Levenei, Vanehem, La'aman, Shamo, Bahahava, Mal, Oser, Umashiach, Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah.
Ata gibor leolam Adonai ha'im metim ata rav lahoshiach. You cause the wind to blow and the rain to fall, the sun to shine and the dew to descend. In your love you sustain the living. In your compassion you grant us eternal life. You support the falling and heal the sick. You free the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Who is like you, source of all strength? Who is your equal, sovereign author of life and death, whose will it is that goodness shall prevail? Trusting in you, we see life beyond death. Baruch atah Adonai, Machayeh Hametim. We sanctify your name on earth as in the prophet's vision. The hosts of heaven sing your praise above, for so it is written.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech ol haaretz Kevodo.
Kevodo Melech Olam.
Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimakomo.
From your concealment, majestic one, reveal yourself and rule over us, for you are our hope.
Loch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, Dov Adon, Hallelujah. Dov Adon.
So you get a little sneak preview of Le Dovador then. A warm-up, so now you know how to do it. So our Banot Mitzvah wanted to draw attention to this prayer, that this prayer is all about the passing of generations. Over to you, Leslie.
Yes, indeed. So we thought it would be really nice to invite our children onto the bimah so that they can introduce themselves and tell you when they had their bar or bat mitzvah. Oldest first.
It's a nice honour, Tiffany.
Hello, I'm Tiffany, Leslie's daughter, and this is Jonah. And I read from Pekudei in 2004.
Thank you. Yes. Micheli?
Hi, I'm Michael, Leslie's eldest. I read from Bahal in May 2006.
Hello, I'm Jonathan. I read from Troma in 2013.
Elijah.
Hi, I'm Elijah. I'm Sharon's eldest. I read from Sav in 2014 in Adar.
Hi, I'm Sharon's youngest, and I read from Va'era in 2016.
Tell us your name.
Benji.
Hi, I'm Shmuel, and I'm reading from Korach in 2 weeks.
Okay, Dean. Take it away.
Dovador, le Dovador, le Dovador, nagid God lecha, ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nakdish, le Dovador, le Dovador, le Dovador, nagid God lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, binu lo yamush leolam va'ed. gadol, ki el melech gadol, hakadosh baruch hu. Dov ador, ledov ador, nagid god lecha, ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nagdir.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Sit down, please.
We now move straight over to Yismachu to mark Shabbat.
Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Makadashe shvi Shabbat, kulam yisperu, v'yitangu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Elad yamin, oto karata Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Ze'el l'maaseh b'reishit Shabbat. Ze'el l'maaseh b'reishit Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachotecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. Baruch atah Adonai, shi'atah levadacha, yirah na'avot.
מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו, מגן ישענו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלאותיך וטובותיך, שבכל עת, ערב ובוקר וצהריים. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות.
Hey is your God, the source of peace, and I wanted to sing that because peace has never felt so relevant. And now we just have a few moments of silent meditation or prayer.
Say shalom bimroma, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Say shalom bimroma, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We now turn to Kriyat HaTorah, to the Torah service, page 481. And I invite a little more stage management, that I invite Justin and Deborah, I think, to come ready to open the ark. Hopefully that wasn't a look of surprise on your face, but you were expecting this mitzvah. We're on page 481. This, just a reminder that we have a family room in the corner of our sanctuary, and maybe while our Banot Mitzvah are sharing their illuminations on Torah, are reading their verses, just use the family room and come right back. But we want to be able to hear their words they've poured over this past year.
Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'ein k'ma'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch le'olam Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu l'Adonai iti onoramama shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagedula, hagvura v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach ha'od. Kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, lecha Adonai ha'mamlacha, v'hamitnaseh lechol nerosh.
So we are just waiting for the squirrel to come over, then I'm going to invite you to sit down. Paula, can you pass me one of the Torah leaflets? Thank you. I want this. Ready? That's just it. Beautiful. Thank you. So I think our B'nai Mitzvah class are due to come in so that they can witness when someone chooses as a grown-up to do this. All week, please sit down. All week I have been quoting from Yehuda ben Tema, Mishnah Avot, be bold like a leopard. That sense of choosing life that our four amazing women have done. Because at this moment in your life, when you choose to study, to return, to build something new, to really invest time, effort in learning such a skill as reading or chanting from Torah, of wrestling with the words, there is a sense of boldness and courage. Bold like a leopard have been our four women. So I am delighted to be calling you all up. I know that you're on the bima, but you are still going to be called as an Aliyah LaTorah up to the Torah. So I am going to call each four of you to come up now together. Ta'amdu, ta'amdu, kol hakfutza hazot, Ruth bat Avraham v'Sarah, Esther Miriam bat Meir v'Ira, Sharona Michal bat Avraham v'Sarah, Sarah bat Yosef v'Rivka, Levarech v'Likrat HaTorah. We'll stand up here together, ready. Just check we're in the right place, which we are. Wonderful, Charlotte. You come over here, Charlotte. Hold on here. Okay. So, do you need to hold on? Yeah. Good. Sharon? So, 1, 2, 3. Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten
Torah. Amen. So, Charlotte, you first. So, you're going to put this here. I'm going to give you which hand do you want to open out? So you're going to put your hand there so that you don't. I'm going to point for you. The teta bear.
Bat Daber, Miriam, Baharon, Bamos Moshe al Odot ha Isha ha Kushit Asher Laka Ki Isha Kushit Lakach Bayomru Harak Ak Moshe Diber Adonai Haloch Gam Banu Diber Yishma Adonai.
So Charlotte is sharing translation of these two verses.
Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had taken into his household as his wife. He took a Cushite woman. They said, Has God spoken only through Moses? Has God not spoken through us as well? And God heard it.
In my verses, God calls Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to the meeting tent, and God appears as a pillar of cloud and tells them that Moses is a supremely humble and faithful leader, and therefore God speaks to him directly. In studying this parashah, and my verses in particular, three things stood out for me. Moses as a leader, God as a person, and the idea of being in the wilderness. Moses, the leader of the Exodus from Egypt, is described as the most humble man on earth. Humble doesn't seem to sit naturally with many of today's leaders. So many at the top of politics want to be seen as strong men. We do have inspirational leaders in some fields, but it took me a while to think of leaders who were also humble. Until I came up with our Queen, who's happy to take tea with a stowaway. And then I thought about Professor Sarah Gilbert, who led the development of the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine, but couldn't understand why she got a standing ovation at Wimbledon. Elsewhere in the Torah, Moses is described as patient, heroic, and wise. He expresses clear values such as monotheism. And Moses is also human. He has a speech defect, experiences self-doubt, and loses his temper. And he never gets to the land of Canaan as a punishment for earlier sins because, as a leader, he is expected to have higher standards than those he leads. Plenty of lessons for us there about how to be a good leader. In Bamidbar and elsewhere, God is described as a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. I love this symbolism. The cloud as protection, the fire as strength, warmth, and a guiding light. Yet somehow the Torah God gets given human attributes. He's male, he speaks, He can be loving and merciful, but he's also sometimes angry, jealous, and judgmental. I find this hard to reconcile, and I have been asked, how can I square the idea of being an atheist with wanting to have a bat mitzvah? I think that's connected to the idea of being in the wilderness, the whole theme of Bar Midbar. As humans, we long for certainty and stability, and yet our lives are always changing. The symbolism of Judaism provides constancy for me. The Ner Tomid, the eternal flame over the ark, keeps burning. I like the interpretation of the angel within the cloud, an ongoing spiritual presence. The traditions, however much we reinvent them, go back centuries and connect me to my ancestors. I've always believed that as a woman and as a Jew, I am incredibly lucky to have grown up in this country at this time. And now, when things feel a lot less stable in the world, Jewish values, tradition, and ritual help keep me grounded.
So a reminder, everyone, you have beautiful Torah scrolls that our Josie makes for every bar bat mitzvah, and you have them and are able to follow right now. Can you go to the beginning again?
והאיש משה ענף מעט מכל האדם אשר על פני האדמה ויאמר אדוני פתאום אל משה ואל אהרון ואל מרים צאו שלושתכם אל אוהל מועד ויצאו שלושתם וירד אדוני ויעמוד ענן ויעמוד פתח האוכל ויקרא אהרון ומרים ויצאו שניהם ויאמר שמונה דברי אם יהיה נביא לכם אדוני במראה אליו אתוודה בחלום אדרבה בו לא כן עבדי משה בכל ביתי נאמן הוא.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Just keep it. Deep breath.
We know at this point that God can be angry, harsh, and a disciplinarian. The tribes are disobedient, complaining, and persistently questioning Moses' leadership. We have seen God dispel his wrath when his instructions are not followed. We also know that Moses is aging and more than likely slowing down both physically and mentally. At times, his spirituality is tested. Nevertheless, he remains God's trusted servant, a prophet, and God's spokesperson. We also know that he is humble and at times can be very placid. Moses' siblings are Miriam and Aaron, who are both older than him. They have been supportive of Moses, looking out for him. Aaron has been at Moses' side from the very beginning of the Exodus. He is a big brother supporting Moses' quest and at times helping him to lead. However, his power to lead diminishes during the migration, and he merely becomes a follower. Miriam is the eldest sibling. Like most women during this time, held no key role. So when Miriam is in conversation with Aaron, speaks out against Moses, she questions his marriage to a Cushite, who happened to be of a darker skin. Miriam also questioned Moses' leadership and why God was only speaking to him. Both Miriam and Aaron want to become prophets, waiting to be promoted. So why would Miriam be so brazen and speak so harshly? Was she just being critical of Moses taking a bride who is a Cushite? Was she jealous that God only spoke to Moses? Or was she questioning Moses' ability to lead? When God overhears Miriam and Aaron's conversation criticizing Moses, he calls them out of the tent and reprimands them. God reminds me of a parent who overhears his children being critical, scheming, and not following the rules. Rather than just speaking to the ringleader, Miriam, God speaks to both. This is his way of making it clear who is in charge and reminding them they are not to question Moses' decisions, explaining to them that he speaks directly to Moses, mouth to mouth, plainly and not in riddles. That Moses beholds the likeness of the Lord, that is, represents, speaks for God. We know how angry God can get, and it's worrisome that Miriam and Aaron do not consider this. God reminds them they should have been afraid for speaking against his servant. After making his point clear, he departs, leaving Miriam with snow-white scales. Was this a form of leprosy? As it was believed that leprosy was a punishment for sin. How ironic that this affliction to her skin was snow-white, since Miriam made a point of criticizing how dark Moses' wife was. How is it that only Miriam is struck down with this affliction and not Aaron? He was just as guilty of being critical. He too has his faults. Remember the golden calf? Yet he gets off lightly. Was his punishment to watch his sister suffer? Miriam and Aaron's criticism of Moses' leadership resonates with me. As children, many of us grew up in a household where we were told by a parent or an elder to do as I say, because basically they were in charge. If you grew up with siblings, you were either bossed around or doing the bossing. I come from a family of 4. I am the third child. My sister Doris is the eldest, followed by Charles, and then there's Robert, the youngest. There are 12 years between Doris and Robert, and when she bossed him, he would quote the lines from Jean Knight's 1970 hit song, asking her, "Mr. Big Stuff, who do you think you are?" Away from home, we are always surrounded by leaders. Some are great, some are so-so, and some are questionable. Do we follow these leaders without question, or do we challenge them? What about the leadership of men versus women? During this biblical period, women do not have a leadership role. In many cultures, they are the giver of life, matriarchs, keeper of secrets and traditions. Despite this, they are often kept in their place and forced to keep their opinions to themselves, whilst men are considered leaders, scholars, providers. My, have things changed. Leadership is subjective. How we handle ourselves leading others or perceive those who are leading us will always be examined. Was Miriam wrong to question Moses' leadership? So when God finally speaks directly to Miriam, a woman, he rebukes her, and despite the consequences, Miriam made a bold decision to speak her truth.
I'm going to swap with you. A reminder, some of you are holding sweets, and I will alert you to the moment that these women will get showered.
Pay al pay adaber bo, va uvare vilo, vahidot umonot, Adonai yebit, umadua lo, yeratam, la deber, be'avdi v'moshe, vayihar af Adonai bam, vayelek, vaha'anon sar, ma'al ha'o'al, vahine Miriam mazoroat kashaleh, vayifan ha'aron al Miriam, vahane mazoroat, vayomer ha'aron al Moshe, bi Adoni, al na tashet, al nu, alenu, hatat, asher, no alnu, asher, hatanu.
Yeshikoah. And now our final piece, Etty.
In our parasha, and especially in the verses that I'm about to read, Miriam inspires strong emotions and reactions. She's the target of God's anger on the one hand, but also inspires the love of her brothers Moses and Aaron. My full name is Esther Miriam. I was named after both my paternal grandmothers. So my interest in Miriam's fate in this parasha is because she's my namesake, but even more, I identify with her as a woman. In the parasha, we see how Miriam's punishment, in the form of a harsh skin condition, probably leprosy, comes on unexpectedly. So we're told that God is angry with them, with both Miriam and Aaron, and then he departs, following which the cloud in which God appears clears. And the next thing we are told is that Miriam appears white as snow, which we understand is the manifestation of leprosy. This dramatic and sudden sequence of events happens immediately, and there's no warning. When I think of the way that Miriam's affliction is meted out by God, I think of the way people behave when they're very angry. I find myself drawing parallels between this intense sequence of events and the way that violent men, in a moment of extreme anger, can lose it and punish women, often women who are close to them. I'm uncomfortable to make this analogy when speaking about God, but in my reading of the Torah, I see a reflection of social standards and attitudes of that time. And I apologize if anyone is offended by this interpretation. So to me, Miriam's harsh and severe punishment is because of her sex, and serves not only to remind her of her place, but as a message to the other women in the camp. Her punishment is visible, her skin becoming like snow. After this, she's excluded from the camp for 7 days, and the Israelites must wait for her to heal before they can journey on. So I imagine that this period of waiting for Miriam to be allowed back into the camp gives everybody the chance to gossip and talk about, did you hear what happened? So everybody knows about it. Everyone in the camps knows what happened and why, which means that lessons are undoubtedly learned, mostly by the women. Growing up in the 70s and 80s in Tel Aviv and following the achievements of the feminist movement, I believed that my sex was not central to what I can achieve and to how I would be treated by society and by those closest to me. Unfortunately, despite the gains, we're still finding women's lives restricted by violence and inequality and by sexism in society and in institutions. As for love, in verse 13, Moses utters a famous and unique prayer for Miriam's healing. It is famous because it is so short, so there's a lot of discussion by various rabbis about this shortness. Why is it so short? He shouts, it says Vayitzak, using 5 words, 5 short words. It's not only just 5 words, it's 5 words and it's just 11 letters altogether for these 5 words, in a powerful and agonized plea for his sister to be healed. And it uses the word na, please, twice. So Moses calls or shouts, El na refa na la. And my literal word-by-word translation is, God, please heal, please her. Moses' love and protectiveness towards Miriam comes through really powerfully in this short verse. So in this prayer for healing, Moses' love and care for his sister is palpable. And I'm moved by the love, care, and humanity it expresses so succinctly, which reminds me of the strong family bonds I have with my children, who are here today, and with my family and friends who are mostly in Israel, and some of whom I hope, are joining us today via Zoom, and with my adopted mother, Sheila, who is a close friend of my parents for more than 50 years and is here today. So both my observations are about strong emotions towards women, one relating to love and protectiveness, and the other to anger and control. So I want to say how much I treasure the way that women and men in this community are valued equally. I'm sure having a rabbi like Rabbi Rebecca, enables this equality. So in this journey of learning and discovery, we found it extraordinary how many rich, stimulating and engaging themes are invoked by the scriptures. I'm just kind of talking on behalf of all of us to conclude. And we found that having a story with a female protagonist for our parasha resonated with us. It seems particularly relevant, 3 women having a bat mitzvah supported by a female rabbi. And sometimes we found the text challenging, but each verse had many possible meanings and relevance to today's world and to us as individuals. And now I'll read my psukim, my verses. Right. Al na tehi kamet asher betzeto mirechem imo vayachel chatzi besaro ויצעק משה אל אדוני לאמור אל נא רפנה לה ויאמר אדוני אל משה ואביה ירוק ירק בפניה הלא תיכלם 7 ימים, תיסגר 7 ימים מחוץ למחנה, ואחר תאסף. ותיסגר מרים מחוץ למחנה 7 ימים, והעם לא נסע. עד האסף מרים, ואחר נסעו העם מחצרות, ויחנו במדבר פרן.
Amen. Yeshua. So hold on, you are about to shower goodness and sweets. But no, not you side. You side are going to stand to do the closing blessing, and the rest of us will move away from these 4 ladies.
Please. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Come on, give it to us. Yay!
It never occurred to me to tell them what kind of sweets, but what looks like enormous family-sized pieces of halva might not have been the perfect way to throw sweets. So I'm going to ask you all to stand as Justin raises the scroll for us for Hagba. We let Justin through. Sure, feel free to sit down.
Oh, sorry.
So we go straight, please sit down. I am very conscious of time and how joyful this service has been to fit everything in. But our Banot Mitzvah chose their friend Bobby, who marked her Bat Mitzvah last year in another big group, to read Haftarah, and they chose Psalm 90, and you might realize why.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro b'hitvei hakodesh. God, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn people back to dust, saying, "Return to dust, you mortals." 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. Yet you sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. Our days may come to 70 years or 80 if our strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger. Your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Relent, Eternal. How long will it be? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, for as many years as we have seen trouble. May your deeds be shown to your servants, your splendor to their children. May the favor of the eternal our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol ha'olamim, sadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer va'oseh, hamedeh ba u'mekayem shechol devarav emet v'sadek. Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hol kitvei hakodesh ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnecha lehavod u'letifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim la u'mevarachim otach yitbarach shimha b'fi kol hai tamid leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Yeshua Koach, Bobby. Teach us to number our days that we may acquire a heart of wisdom as you have all done. We are page 484, and I think some of you know that you've been invited. Tiffany has been invited, Vivian, and Michael and Jonathan to share the paragraph on Israel, our blessing for the state of Israel. If I can ask the three of you to come up ready to share the prayers for our congregation. And if you stand in front of, so if we stand, we're going to switch over the Torah scrolls in a minute. I'm going to explain. We have a very full bima. Let's all stand. We're going to use this, Vivian. So, Tiffany, you first.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth, and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, and so that it may be forced with your righteousness and peace and life of humanity.
And let us say, Amen. Now the prayer for our congregation.
Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who enter this synagogue to meet, to study, and to pray. Comfort the sorrowing hearts among us, and heal those in anxiety or pain. May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and do your will.
And lastly,
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream, and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice.
May they all live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbours, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Amen. So I'm going to invite you all who are not our Banot Mitzvah to come down from the bima now. Yes, you're in the right direction. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav shemo levado. Squeeze in now a blessing for our 4 Banot Mitzvah. They worked all year learning from not just one Torah scroll, but another Sefer Torah, one of our Czech scrolls. They agonized over the crowns, over the letters in there. They wanted that connection for their learning to encompass all parts of Torah and the way our community is linked to the past, to the present, to the future as they introduce their children. So as I offer a blessing for them, I really wanted also to pass the Czech scroll that they studied from to be able to pass them one to each other as we offer the blessing for Shehechianu, for reaching a moment for the very first time. So a blessing for the 4 of you before we do that. We know that at the age of 39, Rabbi Akiva knew no Torah. He didn't even know the Aleph Bet, so all of you were way ahead of him. At the age of 40, he began to learn, and he became one of our greatest sages and rabbis, a great teacher of Torah. You too came with a thirst for knowledge, to fill in the gaps and to learn more and more. Like Rabbi Akiva, you embraced the Aleph Bet in varying degrees of profundity. Like Rabbi Akiva, you learned so that you can now teach. Yeah, I didn't let you know that that is what's going to happen now for the next year, so that you can teach. And this morning, in all this congregation, with your friends and family, but most of all, our community that are so proud of you, we share this blessing with you for learning, for growing. You have become models of the love of Torah and the pursuit of Jewish knowledge. So we're going to pass the Torah scroll now with Shehechianu.
Baruch atah
yous before we take the scroll away and close the ark.
Just some quick thank yous. I wanted to firstly thank all the unsung heroes and heroines who quietly got on with all the tasks that made this bat mitzvah flow along so well. In particular, Bobby, who supported our learning, Sharon Silvermeyer and all the people who've done the Kiddush, for Josie for hosting the Zoom and all the other bits and bobs she does behind the scenes. And also Sharon, Etty and I have really enjoyed working together, and we wanted to sort of thank each other and find ways to continue learning and being friends, because it's really worked out very nicely.
And on behalf of the four of us, we would like to thank our teachers. For Charlotte, that was Andrea and Paula. There was also Daisy, and of course, my mentor, John, who helped both Etty and I. We thank you very much for your loyalty, your support, and getting us through this day.
And of course, to Rabbi Rebecca for supporting us, educating and inspiring us, helping us find a framework for our understanding of all the complex issues in the parasha. We thank you most sincerely for taking us on this rewarding spiritual journey. Toda.
I think we need a moment of joy for this group.
Siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov, 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 siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov.
Hashivenu, help us to return to you, O God, and we shall return. Renew our days as in the past.
Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva kadesh yameinu v'kedem kadesh yameinu v'kedem.
Okay. We're going straight to Aleinu, page 520, before we close our service with Kaddish. know very well in our Jewish tradition that joy follows sadness, follows joy again. And we are caught in that circle of life. And we don't need Ecclesiastes to remind us there is a time to mourn and a time to laugh. So we turn now to Kaddish, marking and remembering those who are mourning at this time. We think so much in this congregation, as we did last week too, of the death of Zohar Collins, whose funeral took place yesterday. The whole liberal Jewish community and LJY in particular are still reeling from his loss. There will be days of shiva following the end of Shabbat, and an opportunity for all our young people in the community, in our synagogue, to be able to mourn his loss together in the way we know how to in our Jewish community and tradition. We think also of Gillian Benson, grandmother of Max Riebach and great-grandmother of Lenny Ella, born this week. Zichronam livracha. We turn now to the yard sites that fall this Shabbat, of Leon and Maya Fredman, brothers of Braham Fredman, of Leo Rosenbaum, father of Jackie Fawcett, and of Deborah Sanders, mother of Rochelle Simmons. Zichronam livracha. May those who remember and recall their loved ones be comforted in their loss as we say the words of the Kaddish with them. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shamei Rabbah, bi'ama divra hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'hayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dochol Beit Yisrael, magala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mavorach le'olam amen maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitada v'yitale v'talal shemei dekudusha brichu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbahata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'hayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru. Amen. Let's sit down. We are 10 minutes later than we like to be on a Shabbat morning. For those of you at home joining us, and for our children who learn with us and waiting for Kiddush. But we are going to just have one more moment of announcement and presentation before we finish our service. Then you will be invited to go straight to the back for this phenomenal Kiddush and to be able to join us in Kiddush with Dean and I. And the B'nai Mitzvah class, I'm going to ask you to help us lead Hamotzi this morning.
What an extraordinary morning. I'm quite overwhelmed. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Honestly, I thought I was going to be fine. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome once again, really special welcome to family and friends of our B'nai Mitzvah who have joined us this morning. There are people here on Zoom, looking straight at the Zoom camera, here from Bermuda, Georgia, Israel, other places in the United States, and you are so welcome. And I know some of you got up particularly early this morning for you to be with us this morning. It was so extraordinary to hear your stories. And I'm so glad you shared them at the beginning of the service so that I did have time to recover, because it was so heartwarming and they're so different, your reasons why you're with us, and we are so proud and we are so honoured to have you as part of our community. And you spoke about leadership this morning, and really you spoke about humble leaders, strong leaders, brave leaders, and you have been such this morning for us. And we are so grateful to you for sharing this really extraordinary moment with us this morning. So we have for you here some certificates from the community to honour you. So for Esther Miriam, would you like to Mazal Tov? Thank you. For Leslie Sarah, for Sharon Madri Michael. Thank you. And for Charlotte, who is down here, and I shall come down, Charlotte. And I just wanted to also thank everybody who participated in the service this morning and supported their families, ark openers, community readers, and of course to Rabbi Rebecca, Dean, and our tech team, and our Kiddush extraordinaires, Bobby and Sharon. Thank you. Just a very short 2 or 3 little announcements this morning. It would be lovely if as many people in the community and visitors and guests could join our Cafe Ivriya tomorrow morning, where we're going to be finding out about our High Holy Day charities, which will be a very special moment. And also, if you'd like to join Bobby on Tuesday afternoon in her crafternoon, which sounds fantastic. It's a craft with a twist, and apparently you don't have to have any talent, for which I'm very grateful. And also just a special mention on Wednesday night, Rebecca, for your LJ Education Hub session, which is Say Goodbye to Woolly Liberalism, which sounds extraordinary. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paula. So we're going to finish the service not with a Don Olam, which is always a big surprise when we go off-piste, but just thinking of our desire to get to Kiddush and to bless all of our Banot Mitzvah. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha.
Come
up ready. Shabbat Shalom. If you move the chairs to the side, head towards your wine and challah. Challah this week is being made by Shmuel in advance of his bar mitzvah, his tzedakah project. So the whole class will say Hamotzi as Dean leads us in Vashamro. Please stand and start moving towards the back to claim your wine.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. בששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. Amen.
Okay, you guys. Whip off. Oh, where? Oh, it's because we cut them up already, Shmuel. Okay, so off you go. 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem